Okay, I'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the April installment of the MEGUG Lunch and Learn series. Today's presentation is going to be on sharing Maine DEP's biomonitoring data with ArcGIS Online Maps and R Markdown reports. I am Becky Schaffner. I'm the current chair of MEGUG. Matt Doobie, who usually does these, runs these talks, wasn't able to join us today. Just a quick plug, if you're not already a member of MEGUG, there is a QR code in the corner of the slides, and we encourage you to join us if you are interested. Okay, we have a few upcoming events I want to promote, and the first is our next Lunch and Learn, which is May 20th, with Lauren Mayhew of UMaine Augusta, and she will be presenting on data security and privacy. You can see our previous Lunch and Learn presentation videos at YouTube. The link for that is at the bottom of the slides as well. We also have a couple of in-person things coming up. The first is on May 13th. The Maine Municipal Association is holding their tech conference at University of Maine at Augusta on May 13th, and MEGUG is hosting a networking Mappy Hour and lightning talks, short presentations after the conference, and it's a joint event between MMA and MEGUG. And then in October, we'll be holding our fall conference and annual meeting at University of Maine up in Orono. So look out for more information on that. Just wanted to thank our sustaining members. Our gold members are CAI Technologies, Esri, Maine Technical Source, and Viewshed. Our silver sustaining members are Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry, Maine Department of Transportation, Maine Office of GIS, Maine Public Utilities Commission, University of Maine's Fogler Library, and Wheatland Geospatial Lab. And our bronze members are Maine Geolibrary, CGIS Solutions, Dirigo Spatial Systems, Greater Portland Council of Governments, GEI Consultants, St. George Consulting Group, Stantec, Stone Environmental, Wright Pierce, and Kennebunk, Kennebunkport, and Wells Water District. That one's always a mouthful. Okay, and so I'm going to introduce Doug Suitor and Adam Pepi, who are my colleagues at DEP. We're all in the Division of Environmental Assessment, and they're in the Biological Monitoring Unit. There is a Q&A button at the bottom, and please use that if you have any questions. We'll address all questions at the end of the presentation. So let's see. Escape. Stop sharing. And go ahead. I believe Doug is up first.
All right. Thanks, Becky. So what do we got here? So we're both with the Biological Monitoring Unit at DEP. So what we do is we go out, we sample the waters to try and find out if the aquatic life is meeting the aquatic life standards of our Water Classification Act. So this, probably should have gone more into this. So the state of Maine has a water classification program where all the waters are assigned a class with certain aquatic life use, well, certain use requirements. So we have from class AA, our most pristine waters, down to class C, which are still supposed to be fairly natural and obtaining aquatic life with some modification. And what we do is we sample these waters for macroinvertebrates, algae, macrophyte plant surveys to determine if our aquatic life is meeting their water class. So this presentation is about how we share that data, that once we've gone out and collected the data. So I'm going to share a screen here. All right, so this is our data sharing application that we use. So this started probably probably 15 years ago, they started trying to share this data with the public, with internal users, and we did it through Google Earth. We were all using Google Earth at the time. Chris Halstead, who most of you probably know or have heard of, he set up a Google Earth project for us. We would take our site. So all these dots you're seeing are places where we have sampled. So this is served on or stored on a GIS server at the state. And we have to pull the site locations off of that and match it up with the data that we collect. Our data is all stored in an Oracle database that we call EGAD, which was also set up by Chris Halstead back in the day. What EGAD stands for is something that I don't even remember. Environmental something database. So when this was originally set up, it was run through Google Earth Microsoft Access scripts with VB scripts in Microsoft Access. So Chris set this up. He was running these things to kind of pull the data out of this EGAD database, pair it up with the scripts, run queries within Microsoft Access of the Oracle data. So you pull it from Oracle into Microsoft Access, run a query, and then pair that with some Python scripts and VB scripts that would, anyway, it got very complicated, and it worked great in Google Earth for many, many years. The updates were done through it required Chris Halstead or Maine OIT GIS staff, John Lynham. And that worked fine for us for a number of years. Then ArcGIS Online came around, and we made the switch over to that. And we're still able to use the Google Earth scripts that Chris Halstead had written in Microsoft Access. But that kind of required us to go through these old scripts. It required a number of Python scripts that modified the Google Earth output into an ArcGIS Online product. Chris had set up some of those Python scripts. John Lynham's been updating those for years. And it's never really been within the control of the biological monitoring unit of what we wanted to display at any given time. So it was all kind of set. We didn't want to change anything too much. And pretty much every time we talked to John Lynham, and it's probably, if most of you work for DEP, you'll probably have heard the same story from him. Every time you talk to him, he reminds you that he's retiring very soon. So we wanted to kind of take this over, and ArcGIS Online Maps were also threatening to kind of retire that system. They wanted to kind of force everybody into this new web experience that they have. So at that point, we decided it was time for us to kind of break the link to the old Access VB queries and the Python scripts. Adam and I are both proficient enough in R that we could pull the data into R and start building our own stuff. So this allows us at biomonitoring complete control of the map, and well, almost. We still store our points in a spatial database on the GIS servers, which Becky helps us update, but that's another thing that we could update ourselves if we needed to, but we're pretty happy with Becky doing it. So we've switched over to this web experience. This is what you're looking at. It's the web experience. It has sample stations, a map for attainment results, and then another web page link for report help. So like I said, this gave us control, and it cut the links from Access. So we're now able to pull all our data, which is in this EGAD database, directly from Oracle into R. We can bring in the point layer as a feature service directly into R. And then once we have our data and our points in R, we can do pretty much whatever we want with it. So what we do is we take this point layer and the data at Oracle, like I said, build these points, and combine the data and the points into a number of different things. So the feature class comes in, like I said, and we build two different site features. So for the sample stations, we have a site feature. So this basically does everything that our old Google Earth used to do. So it displays our points. If you click on it, we'll have a pop-up will show up. It'll bring up a pop-up. It'll tell you about the point. It has a big thing on the site details and all the reports. So this will have a link to all the data. Adam's going to talk about these in just a little bit, but it pops up here, and it'll give this report. We'll let Adam talk to you about in a moment. And that was all we really did initially in Google Earth, was just kind of show the things and then have a pop-up that would link to the data. And we had reports that were generated, again, in EGAD through VB scripts. So we've been able to we still have some of those, but we're kind of working our way into making all those reports now in R as well. So this thing comes out, so we have the two feature classes, the site ones, and then this new one, attainment stuff. So attainment is, like I was talking about the water classes. So if an area is a class A water, and we go out and sample it, and our biological model tells us the macroinvertebrate community is not quite meeting its class, it would be a B or C if it's not meeting, or it could be non-attainment, or it could be meeting its class. So that's what we call attainment. If it is meeting its class, it's attaining. If it's a lower class, it's non-attaining. So we'll have more details on that in the other map. So we built I build two feature classes in R. Once we pull the feature, so you pair it all up with all the data you want for each of the feature classes, and then bring that back into ArcGIS Online. And in ArcGIS Online and my content, you set visualizations, your symbology, your filters, and it ends up in a number of steps now. So if most of you have probably worked with ArcGIS Online Maps, in the past you would build your single map. In the map, you would set your pop-ups, like these things. As you click them, and have a little pop-up. You'd set your labels, like as you zoom in, at what level you want it to turn layers on, layers off, when you want your labels to show up. You add your data layers in that map, which are all available here. So these are all set up when you're building your map in ArcGIS Online. Back out here. So you set each one up separately. So this is the old ArcGIS Online basic type of map. This was another map that we make. So this is an attainment map. So it uses a different set of data, displays our points with a whole bunch of different data, which I'll show you more about here in a moment. And then once you have these two maps, I kind of take the two maps, and then you go into this experience builder, this new ArcGIS Online product that been out for a couple of years, Becky, maybe, yeah, something like that. But this is where they're trying to kind of push us in towards. It offers a lot more flexibility, additional abilities that you can do. I mean, we haven't even really tapped at some of the abilities of what you have in this product. I hate saying the word product. Anyway, the web experience builder. So each map becomes its own page, and you set up your pop-ups and everything in the individual maps, like in your old ArcGIS Online, and then you bring it into the experience builder, and in there you kind of work on building your filtering options. So for example, like typically we used to have the site filtering sites were just search, so you could look for like station 348 or something to that effect. It would give you a couple different biological monitoring stations. So station 348, or this one's going to be a wetland 348. And that's how we used to search in the past. You can still do that, of course, but it also adds the ability to do filtering. So if we want to see all the algae sites, we can do a filter here, show only sites where we've collected stream algae, or we could do sites where we've collected wetlands only. In wetlands, we collect macroinvertebrates, algae, and macrophyte plant surveys. Macroinvertebrates, you can filter by, say, a river station, so the Androscoggin. And it'll give us all the sites along the Androscoggin or the Penobscot, for example. And this was kind of well, even this is expanded beyond what we were able to do in Google Earth. And then in the attainment one, so we have the same filtering options. So these again are set up in your experience builder as you're building the map. So you set what data is available in R. You bring it in as your map. You set up your map for your visualizations and your pop-ups. And then you bring it into the experience builder to kind of set up the map with your different filtering options. So in this case, we have just the link to this particular sample. It's a report. Again, Adam will talk about those in just a little bit. And here it's more about attainment. So for example, this got a final determination of class A. The water class is class A, so the sample is attaining its class. It's got the date and where it was, and so on and so forth. And again, here we use the filter. You can sample for, we go back to the Androscoggin. We can look at just those sites. You can pull up samples that attain class A. You could bring in, actually, I'm not sure what the class on the Andro is, class B. So these are class B sections that attained A. You can look at an attainment of non-attaining in the whole system. Now, if we get rid of the Androscoggin, we can show like, these are all the sites in the state where we've found samples that don't attain for their class. We could look at, say, class B samples that are non-attaining, or class AA. So these are our most pristine waters. These are two sites that weren't attaining these cases. I'll let Adam show you the reports, but then you click on the report will open up and give you an example of why they're not attaining. You can look through all the data, try and find out what macroinvertebrates are missing, or if there's a misbalance of something. The reports will have more details about what's going on in it, in the samples. In this case, it's usually, this water is so pristine that there's very few macroinvertebrates in it in the case of these petite mananair down in Bar Harbor. But you can look at everything, see only sites that are attaining. And this is more of an internal thing. So this is something we use at DEP quite a lot. So internal staff will be wanting to see if a particular system, or looking at a permit that's coming up, if things upstream or downstream of the site may or may not be attaining class, and so on and so forth. So the way these filters work, you have to turn them on over here. And that's the basic filtering that was set up in these things. So what's cool about this stuff is that by having this in R, we can set up a whole bunch of extra data that maybe that can be fairly specific to a number of users. So like maybe there's 5 people that be interested in whether a site is a mitigation site and whether it's missing or not. But we can just add that data. It'll be associated with the point, and most people won't see it because we've filtered it out in the pop-ups, but you can also do like a more advanced filtering here from the data table. So the data table is, didn't mention these little pop-ups here. Oh, stop that. We'll bring up the data table. And then it's got actions under here. So we can like set a filter. We want to look at mitigation site. Or why? Oops. So these are mitigation sites, or we want to say mitigation sites and sites funded by the MNRCP program. Oop, oop, oop. So this lets you kind of filter on more specific stuff. So we can add whatever we want. And as we were going through this process, we kept thinking of new things to add to it, and I'm sure we'll be adding additional stuff as we go. But now these are the mitigation sites throughout the state. We can look at which ones are attaining and which ones aren't. If you turn it on. And that gives you an example of which ones are, and we can add like the dam layer. We can find things that are associated with dams, find things associated with fish hatcheries. And again, look at that just by changing the filters down here. You clear your filter. And looking through all the data tables, which probably actually so these are associated with fish hatcheries across the state. And these are attaining fish hatcheries across the state. Ooh, all right, go away. These are, probably shouldn't have showed this. Areas where fish hatcheries are not, samples are not attaining around fish hatcheries. And then you got to turn your filters off when you're done with them. That gets you back to the entire data set. So that's kind of what we're able to do with the thing. We're not going to get too detailed in the R scripting of how it's done and kind of leave that more towards the end, towards questioning, because we'd be happy to go through some of that if people are interested. But just want to kind of show what can be done at this point, and then let Adam talk about the reports, and then we'll come back to some more questions if that's all right. That sound good?
Doug, do you mind dropping the link to the experience builder in the chat?
It'd be helpful, wouldn't it? Okay, stop sharing temporarily. Let Adam share. This is, nope, this is going to be everyone. Host and panelist? Becky?
It should be an everyone option.
You got host and panelist?
Hold on. You can share it to hosts and panelists, and then I can share it to everyone.
Okay.
If it's not working for you. Oh, no. Looks like it's there.
Actually, Adam, can you show the report help tab when you
sure, do you want me to show that now or
whenever after?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I can show that after. Yeah. Okay. So you guys ready for me to go for explain the reports and so on? Okay. Let's see. So yeah, as Doug was explaining, kind of a context of our program, you know, as part of our monitoring, we generate sample reports for every biological sample that we collect. And a lot of those, most of the types of those, we have transitioned that to reports generated in R Markdown. Originally, a lot of the reports were, as Doug said, generated in VB out of Access. I'll just show that kind of how this is accessed and how it's set up. So if you have a sample point, you click on it and go to these sample station overview pop-ups. This is also generated in R Markdown. So, you know, we pull all the data from our database, and it's all pulled into R and manipulated, and then so we were able to generate automatic outputs for every single one of our sample sites. containing information about the sites. There's a map showing the location of where the sample is in the state, and then a table with all the samples. This is our site with the most data at it. It's been monitored since the early 80s. So then the table shows what the statutory class is of that site, whether that sample attained or not, and what the final determination for that sample was. And then you can also pull up a report. So as Doug mentioned, for stream sites, there's algae and a macroinvertebrate point, and each of those will have different types of samples there. So this is a macroinvertebrate point we're looking at, so it will only have the macroinvertebrate reports. So this, again, is generated in R Markdown using data pulled from our Oracle database, as well as from the GIS view server for geographic data. And it also pulls in pictures from our file system that kind of are automatically put into the reports, and then it makes a little map with the that's, I think, ESRI satellite or ESRI air photos there. Details about the sampling information. This is the kind of details of classification attainment. So, the model probabilities, and then the ultimate model results. So statutory class, model result, final determination, and then in this case, it's A all across, so it attains its class. The model is constructed of a bunch of different variables, which are then used to predict create this predicted result that we base our class determinations on. So we have plots of all the variables. Also, automatically generated through R Markdown for each sample. So these plots have a lot of more information in them than we were able to have in our VB script reports before. So they have the range of all the data, and these box plots, they have the range of the data at reference sites in the gray, and then the specific the results of that specific sample in the blue bar. So we're able to get a lot more information in there. And then we also have it in table form which is automatically generated through the Markdown script as well, if folks want specific numbers for the sample value, all data, median, 10th, 90th percentile, and reference 10th and 90th percentile of different variables. We also have water chemistry plots in all of these, showing the values at deployment and retrieval of our samples. For the stream macroinvertebrate samples are the only ones that have both a retrieval and a deployment, because other samples are taken at a single visit. And this has the same scheme of all data, reference, site data, and then the particular samples. And then tables with more information from, this is the same information essentially that's in the plots that's in the table. For, field meter, water chemistry data, grab sample chemistry data. Then there's other stream characteristics that we collect at the site. Habitat characteristics, wetted width, depth, water velocity, substrate characteristics. We have land use information calculated for the watershed for every site that we sample at. This is in the process of being updated. We had been using MELCD 2004 high resolution layer for a long time, and now we're we're working on calculating the values of NLCD with their new annual product so that we can have land cover values that are matched to the sample year. And then also the new NOAA CCAP, which is higher resolution than NLCD. So this functionality will allow us to like easily update the reports to have multiple data sources in there. Because in the past it was much harder to revise our access VB reports. Yeah, and then there's a taxa list of all the bugs that were found in the sample. Yeah, so that's a stream bug report. I'll go to if we go to an algae point here, have different types of algae samples. There's more information in here because there's multiple types of algae samples, and that all goes into the table. Paraphytometer or rock scrapings. There's also viewing bucket surveys. Show an example, one of those. This is a survey that we do of the cover on the bottom of the stream, and this is now used to implement our new nutrient rule. There are standards for the amount of the bottom of the stream that can be covered by nuisance algae, which is defined as algae of a certain thickness. So with that new responsibility that we have, we needed to have a report format that we can share this data. So it's essentially the same format as those other reports, and a lot of the code can be reused, to generate maps and so on. And then here we have a viewing bucket graph showing that this is below the criterion for class AA waters. And then, as before, water chemistry plots and tables. And then land cover. And then if we go to an algae report, this is closer in structure to the stream macroinvertebrate reports because this is a linear discriminant model like we use to determine class attainment for all our biological assemblages. So this has plots of model variables. In this case, it's 6 variables that go into the stream algae model. Probabilities again of the different classes, and here a slightly different arrangement: statutory class, final determination, class attainment. Plots of additional variables. Tables of all the variables as well, so that it's in a table as well as a graph form. Some of this is related to accessibility compliance, but it's also useful to just have the specific values. Yeah, the algae reports all have viewing bucket in them as well, since that's always conducted along with algae, and then the same land use graphs, and then taxa list again for the algae with all kinds of trait values associated with those algal taxa. So that's a overview of the reports, our reports. We weren't going to do the phytoplankton reports, were we?
Maybe show them a wetland one so that you just see the options for multiple samples types.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Right. Yeah. So this is kind of related to the historic structure of our map, but anything that's collected at a wetland site will go into the same point, whether it's macroinvertebrates or epiphytic algae or phytoplankton. So in this case, this should be one of the new phytoplankton reports.
Yep. Just don't go to the bottom.
Except it jumps straight to the bottom on its own.
Yes, it does.
And then, yeah, these are like the older legacy reports that we
Those are
hope to,
coming out of EGAD.
right, yeah, that we hope to eventually
Yeah.
transition to our Markdown reports.
Yes,
And then I'll show the report help here. So this is just links to documents that explain how to interpret the reports. So a couple of these are now out of date, but this one is still current because we haven't updated the wetland macroinvertebrate report. So this will just explain, this just explains all the different components to the reports. But it's convenient that this can be put in the same map where we have the sample data, as opposed to having to have that in a different location on our biomonitoring website. And so it's, you know, right here where you need it.
and I guess I would mention that in the sample stations page that he's currently showing, the pop-ups, well, the pop-ups for both of those are built. What you're seeing is built in R, but the link to it is built in the map. So in your ArcGIS Online, you kind of incorporate the link to this page that is built in R Markdown. So this sample stations map will bring you to just the station with all the details that are collected, all the different sample types that are collected, whereas the attainment one, the links bring you directly to the report for the sample because they're based on just the sample itself. And I don't know how far into the weeds we want to get on the R stuff, but we could talk more about that, or
Yeah, I mean, maybe if we just leave it for questions, if folks have questions
yeah,
on the details.
I have the code up for the ArcGIS Online, but I mean, nobody wants to look at that. It's kind of what we have.
This is really great. I've been out sampling with you guys from time to time, and it's just really interesting to see what comes of all those different measurements and tests you're doing. So I see that the reports are for individual dates. Have you thought about, or is there any reason to do like a time series view of individual parameters or calculations?
I've been experimenting with doing a R Shiny application that does that. Because, you know, then you can set what parameters you're looking at, and, you know, because if you're doing times, yeah. Yeah, we haven't thought of kind of like a static report yet, but R Shiny is really good for those. And I've been working on that, but it's not like a publicly available thing yet.
And I did play with in the attainment layer. I tried to set up a time slider. So I started playing with the idea of a attainment over time, kind of showing how similar to Becky and I both worked on it, building a map that would you could slide back and forth between current and at the start of a certain time period to see how the water class for the states themselves were changed. But so I wanted, so it'd be kind of neat to tie that in with an attainment results if we can see how attainment results changed over the time. But we have yet to do that. I dabbled with it, but I have not made an official layer with it. We kind of decided to go with so that attainment map is showing the latest sample at every site. So even if the sites hadn't been sampled for 20 years, it still shows that point. But it can be like I did set it up so that you could look at a given year's sample, set of samples, and what the attainment was. But we don't sample every year. So we do a basin approach. We split this data up into 5 separate sections, basically watersheds: Penobscot, Androscoggin, down east, up north, southern Maine. And every 5 years, we try to return back to a basin and sample some of the same sites and some additional ones. So. But yes, we've thought of that, but we haven't done it yet.
It's probably a lot more work.
Yeah.
There's a question in the Q&A from John Zastro. Is there a way to access the raw data and the R code? And that might be, would you guys be willing to put your email addresses in the chat as well? You should be able to do it to everyone now.
So you say access the long-term plans for access to. Oh, I think I jumped onto a different question, but I'll come back to that next Brianna one. But so this question again was,
is there a way to access the raw data and the R code?
Oh, yes. Not so much the raw data. So the raw data is internal, but we share data with anybody who's interested. It's all publicly available. You just have to make a request, and the R code is absolutely available. We'd be happy to share that. It's pretty specific to DEP, but
yeah, a lot of the difficulty is just kind of like wrangling the data the way it's structured in our database and get that in the right format to then get it into the R Markdown. But there are details of the markdowns that are could be more generally useful.
Yes. Right. There's a question: do you have long-term plans for the Access database? So this is a OIT question. We don't know what their long-term plans are, and I know Microsoft doesn't have. I've heard Microsoft is not too thrilled with Access and wants to retire it, and we're in Oracle now, but are we not? These are OIT questions, so I'm just speculating. But I thought I've heard we were moving towards kind of away from Oracle. I don't know if that's true or not. You heard anything?
It was away from Access maybe, but
yeah, definitely that.
With our code currently, we're able to just pull directly from the Oracle database using SQL code, which is great because the kind of the EGAD access element slows things down a lot.
Yeah, we would create an Access database that had linked tables back to the Oracle, and then our R would try to go into the Access database to pull those queries. It was slower, and our passwords would change, and it would break the thing.
There was another question. Did you say, does the macroinvertebrate data include data from citizen scientist programs?
Not yet. So we're working with Audubon to develop a citizen science program. Tom Danielson kind of started it. It's the Marsh Explorers and Stream Explorers. And that data is actually our AmeriCorps Stewart this year is working on kind of creating some ways that you can build reports off the macroinvertebrates collected from our citizen scientists collecting that data with Audubon data. So
that would, and if that was accessible, it would most likely be through Maine Audubon, because different than like volunteer river monitoring programs where you can use some of that data, like there's like a QAP for that, and you can use some of that data.
Right.
For DEP purposes, like we're not able to use that directly, except for as kind of screening information. So yeah, it's probably would never end up on this particular map, but we could use some of the same kind of presentation, in terms of our Markdown to make that data accessible.
Yeah, and there currently is a map on. You can find the Stream Explorers, Marsh Explorers story map on Maine Audubon's website.
Adam, can you share your email as well in the chat? Don't mind.
Sure.
Yeah, to put it up, but I don't remember if you had your middle initial in it or not.
Yeah, I do.
All right, thanks. Any other questions? Well, I guess not. Thank you guys both very much. This is really interesting, and I'm going to go play with that map for a while now.
Oh.
And to all our attendees, hope we see you again in May for the next presentation. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thanks, everyone.
Thanks.